What's going on, good people? It's your boy, the Warrior Prince, back with another video. And in this particular video, I'm going to talk about the lawsuit that former Dolphins head coach Brian Flores brought against the NFL. It's a class action lawsuit, meaning that other people can join in. I guess he left the door open for other people or the other black coaches that felt like they had been excluded or unfairly treated during the hiring process, or for that matter, giving uh, interviews and job interviews just as a sham, not something that was taken serious, or whatever. But I want to talk about it from a different angle. Not just about, how racist the system is and all of that. Not just about that. But I want to talk about it from the angle of the way that we as African American people see ourselves when it comes to the system of the American capitalistic system, and why that we just don't seem to get it. Now, before I play this video, I want to preface this by saying I am in no way, no form talking about Brian Flores, any other African American coach that feel like they should be included in the game of coaching. I mean, included in the NFL with coaching. I'm not talking bad about them. I'm just simply stating something that's an observation from my point. And I just really, really, really want you guys to get something. I'm gonna play this video, and when I play the video, I'm gonna make a comment behind it. So I'm gonna play this video, and I'll talk to you guys on the other side.
Brian Flores from the standpoint of courage, because it takes a lot of courage to do what he's doing. And clearly he's not doing it just for himself. He is in pursuit with a class action lawsuit, basically inviting other coaches to come in and maybe and likely express themselves and show how the conditions which he feels that he's been subjected to is similar to what a lot of black coaches have been going through for quite some times. And we all know what my position has been as it pertains to African-American coaches, particularly in the National Football League. In college football is just as, if not more egregious, at least until recently. The NFL, what I've reminded people over the last few weeks, Keyshawn, is that the Rooney Rule was instituted in 2003. When the Rooney Rule was instituted, essentially compelling you to at least interview African-American coaches and give.
For those of you who don't know what the Rooney Rule is in NFL, it's basically affirmative action in a nutshell. You are supposed to at least interview two minority coaching candidates for the position of head coach, or coaching jobs that are open for that particular organization.
Give them something close to a fair and equitable opportunity. There were 3 African-American coaches in the National Football League. We are 19 years removed from the institution and implementation of the Rooney Rule, and there is now 1 head coach. There have been about 7 or 8 openings this offseason for NFL head coaches. 5 people have been hired. None of them have been black as a head coach. And so when we look at it from that perspective, it is clearly alarming. Now, let me get down to this. There are people that are saying Brian Flores doesn't have much of a case. You heard the National Football League say it's meritless. I'm not buying that one bit. You know, I'm familiar with court proceedings and what have you, and there's something called summary judgment. And I believe that man is going to get past that. He is going to get past summary judgment, and there is going to be some explanations that the NFL is going to be required to disseminate. Bottom line, number 1. Number 2, the New York Giants. We don't know the facts. We have to hold out. But let me say this to the New York Giants. As an organization, when it comes to black coaches, I don't believe a damn word you have to say. There's nobody more incriminating than the New York Giants. We are in the year 2022, okay? All of these years, damn near a century, for crying out loud, football as a century, football has existed. There's one franchise that has not had one single black coach. That is the New York Giants. And we don't even want to get started. I know you had a black GM, but you have never hired a black coach. When you're talking about 53 men on the roster, practice squad, and everything like that, basically you're talking about you don't trust an African American to be a leader of men. That's the Giants organization. Okay, so nobody's giving you the benefit of the doubt. You better be able to prove something, and that's something else. Denver Broncos, different matter. Okay, when you're talking about Don Elway being disheveled and looking the way that he looked, and accusing him of being inebriated or whatever the case may be, I'm not getting into all of that. What I will say to you is this, Key.
Okay, let me comment on. Denver Broncos supposedly interviewed Brian Flores and John Elway supposedly came in, him and a couple other people. They supposed to have been drunk. Like they've been partying all night. So to Brian Flores is like, okay, you're just doing it as a formality. You're not really taking me serious. I'm trying to help me get through this video.
The most damning thing that was said that I peeled from this lawsuit is Stephen Ross, the owner for the Miami Dolphins, the guy that has this organization. I want to make sure I look it up. Just remember the Ross Initiative in Sports for Equality. Okay, this is what Stephen Ross, the owner of the Miami Dolphins, has created. He's contributed millions upon millions of dollars to the cause on behalf of African Americans. And you hired Brian Flores. You have a black GM in Chris Greer. And that is the guy that is being accused in a lawsuit of going up to Brian Flores and encouraging him to throw games, to lose games on purpose, and even offering him $100,000 for every game that he lost. If that is found to be true, Stephen Ross can no longer be an owner for an NFL franchise. He's got to go. If that is true, and only if that is true, he's got to go. You talking about compromising the integrity of competition? He would be in flagrant violation of that. There would be no excuse to keep him on as an owner. And oh, by the way, it would open up an avenue that Brian Flores clearly is interested in broaching, and that's in getting minority ownership, meaning black ownership in the NFL. There's plenty of owners that don't own the team by themselves. They got a group.
Okay, let me start the video now. That's kind of what I wanted to talk about right there. That is what I wanted to talk about right there. All right. So, now I played Stephen A because Stephen A is the face of ESPN. I'm not really a huge Stephen A fan. Just some of the things that he says, I think that are reckless at best. But I wanted to talk about this lawsuit from this perspective. You heard everything that Stephen A said. And, you had the one owner, Stephen Ross, offering Brian Flores, money to take basically dives, not to put his best effort in winning games or whatever, so they can get higher draft picks. Willing to pay him $100,000 per game that he basically tanked on purpose. You have him talking about when he went to interview with the Denver Broncos, general manager John Elway didn't take it serious, so he came to the dance drunk. You have the Giants basically already hiring a coach and just basically interviewing Brian Flores as a formality. Now, the point I want to get onto, and because I've heard this talking point, sorry about that. I've heard this talking point a lot. That is the point of black ownership. See, here's the thing about the NFL. The NFL is, if I'm not mistaken, is 32 teams. And out of 32 teams, there's not one black owner. And that's on purpose. Right? Now, 70% of the National Football League, 70% of all their players are African American. They are African American, right? But 0 of the ownership is African American. Right? Here's my problem. Yes, I get it that we grew up in America and that most of us still believe that we can prosper in a system that was never designed for us to prosper in. right? And the NFL is a private organization, and it's just a microcosm of the society at large, right? There is so much money in the African American community that literally gets thrown away because we feel like we want to go into a house that somebody has built and then turn around and dictate to them or ask them to give us an equal fair shot at the house that they built. And what I mean by that is this. Yes, America was built off the backs of forced labor. It was strategically done that way. When are we going to learn that the society that did that to us is never going to see us as equal, so they're never going to give up their power. All right? To a billionaire, millions are nothing. The NFL is a $12 billion industry a year. $12 billion. So if you want to divide that up, $12 billion, you can times that, divide it up by 32. If you divide $12 billion by 32, what is that going to be, like $400 million per owner per year? Something like that, right? So paying you, pennies, it's to millionaires pennies, right? So my thing about it is that why would someone give up their power, give up their leverage, just to make you feel better, just to make you feel included, when we already know that the National Football League is a microcosm of a bigger society that was built off the backs of forced labor, right? That's the ultimate. Hear me when I say this. That's the ultimate hustle. I get, it's nothing but profit. I don't have an overhead, right? So if I lost my train of thought, but basically, you're asking people to give that up for what? For what? All the money in the African American community. All right, we live in a different time and a different age. Now, I'm not saying that racism isn't systematic. Clearly, the NFL and what they were doing, because everything that he's saying, I believe. Everything that he's saying, I believe, because I've been in the United States military. I've been in the United States military. I was in the United States military for 5 years, and I've actually had people in the military do me the exact same way, right? So there's things that he's saying, I don't doubt that they're true, but the fact of the matter is, this is a private organization. Yeah, excuse me. Excuse me for 1 second. All right, I apologize. My rant was interrupted, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. You have 32 white men. Why would they want to allow a black man to come in and mess up a good thing? Right? And yes, like I said, what they did was wrong. But why would they do that? But I'm just going to pivot off that point. When are we, as African American people, are going to really see the point of the matter that this was not designed for us to prosper? It was never even designed for us to have a seat at the table. When are we going to do like LeBron said? When are we going to take our talents elsewhere? That's my thing. You mean to tell me you got all of these entertainers, all of these rappers, you got all these uh Mongols that are African American, and we can't take that situation and say we're going to start our own? Now, I get it. We got many examples of every time in American history that when African Americans tried to start our own, white folks came and burned it down. But we live in a different time. And I say that to say this. Why don't we reconnect back to the continent? Right? Why don't we take our dollars and reconnect back to the continent? Why don't we take our money and start a league, an American football league, an American style football? Because in Africa they call football soccer. What we call soccer, they call football. Why don't we take an American style football to the continent? Why don't we take our resources and put it to where we're in control by people that look like that are us and look like us? Y'all don't understand something. Okay? Let's just take MLB, Major League Baseball, for example. My son is getting in trouble, y'all. I apologize. Let's just take Major League Baseball, for example. When they did integration, I'm reading the comment, but let me, I'm gonna say this. Okay, let me go ahead and answer this comment. It says, but they're in business with others. It's not as if we own our own art or culture outright. Music, art, etc. is usually undergirded by non-black capital. That is true. That is true. But the fact of the matter is that we could take what we've already earned and take it elsewhere. Right? My great grandfather was a sharecropper. Just tell this story. My great grandfather was a sharecropper. And every year, the white man that he was doing business with, right? Every year, the white man that he was doing business with would shortchange him every year. Every year he would tell my great grandfather that, hey, looks like we broke even. Hold on. My son is watching Coca Melon, so if y'all hear him in the background, I deeply apologize. But every year, the white man that he was doing business with would tell my great grandfather, well, it looks like we broke even. He did it to him for like 2 to 3 years. So my great grandfather said, you know what? I got all my children out here helping me work this land. I am doing the bulk of the work. You know what? You can keep getting on me because you're in a position of power. I'm not. But I got something for you. So my great grandfather devised a plan. And what he did was every time they would make a bundle of hay, he would take a little aside, enough to where the guy wouldn't notice. And so they were taking it home, taking it home, taking it home, taking it home. So at the end of the year, at the end of the season, he said the same thing to my grandfather. Well, it looked like we broke even. My great grandfather said, yeah, it appears that we broke even. He got 3 or 4 bottles of hay. Even more than that he's been taking from the guy the entire time. Now, it didn't seem like it was a lot. At the time, it was little bundles, it was little portions of hay at the time, but it ended up being a whole lot. So my great grandfather got away from that. He took that money, got him something, invested in it, and got away from that. What I'm saying is that even if you're not a Jay-Z, even if you're making $30 million, look what Akon did. Akon went over there and had, because he brought so much capital to the table, he had foreign investors willing to invest in his energy company. Akon is making a killing off of providing energy in Africa, in several different countries. Right now, Akon is building Akon City. Right? And you can rest assured it's going to be something like Dubai when he get done with it because he's got Chinese investors. What I'm saying is, you're right. His name is my name too. You're absolutely right. We don't own our stuff. But the reason why we don't own our stuff is because we're not being smart with the profits that we're making to say, you know what, you can keep this. I'm going to do this. We can easily take our money and our resources that we have. We could take it and reconnect back on the continent. They're literally starving to reconnect with African Americans because they love our culture. Around the world, our culture is loved. I don't know why, but around the world is loved, right? So we could easily do that. The fact of the matter is, um, that's true. I would say, yeah, you're right. He's Senegalese and he does have a cultural ties, but at the same time, money talks and bullcrap walks, right? So how do I say this? How do I say this? It may be easy for me to say because my wife is African, my wife is Nigerian, so I have a connection on the continent. But what I'm trying to say is that we have to try. We could do it. We can actually try, but it's not a matter of do we not have the resources. The fact of the matter is, it's our mindset. We still want to be included. We still want to be included. And I was going to make a point about this earlier. Take MLB when we did integration, right? Most people don't think all they highlight is that there was the first black man to be integrated in the Major League Baseball, right? That's all we think about is first black man to be integrated in Major League Baseball. But what we don't talk about is all the black businesses that was lost by the folding of the Negro leagues, right? Black businesses was propped up and was predicated upon the success of the Negro leagues. And the reason why they integrated Major League Baseball was for the black dollars. They seen the economies that was popping up in all these different cities based around black owned teams. It goes back to, okay, well, we may not can just burn your town down like we did in Tulsa or like we did in New York City or um yep, he sure did. He sure did. And the thing about that is, all integration did, it made us forsake what we was already building. Because I'm not trying to say that the way that white people was treating us back in the past was great. It was not. It was not, right? Even when we were separated, we were still getting treated unequal. But it forced us to have our own. That's one of the things that I really like about what Deion Sanders is doing, right? I don't know how long he's going to do it. I don't know how long it's going to last, but I really like what he's doing with Jackson State because he's having top recruits come back to traditionally black owned, historically black colleges, right? So they're coming back and they're putting a spotlight on these historical black colleges, right? All of these prominent athletes, you got to remember, came out of these historical black colleges prior to integration, right? And now all of these colleges, can't stress this enough, all of these major colleges are rich off the backs of black athletes, their blood, sweat, and tears. They're rich. They're major universities propped up by black athletes. Now, forgive me if I'm slurring my words. I bit my lip and it hurts like hell. But that's what it is. That's really what it is. And so all of these um let's say how hold on, I'm reading the comments. It says Well, here's what I say. They do. You're absolutely right. Here's what I say. Um, I don't think you can take everybody. I don't think you can take everybody. I think that you have to be willing to say, okay, it's going to be the majority, because majority are deceived, right? What I say, 85% of people are sheep. So, um, right, as a black business owner, I can contest to that. I could. Black people do not have faith in black-owned businesses. They think white is better and black is bad. It's not even the white people, because the most people who patronize my portrait business, me being a professional artist, is white people. I've never had, I think, out of all the portraits that I've done, I've had 2 black people patronize me. That's it. I can count them off the top of my head. 2. That's it. So you're right, but the thing about it is that my plan is, this is just me. This is just what I feel about it. I don't think that you can take everybody with you. I think there's some people um, that yeah, I think there's some people that just a lost cause. Man, it's very sad. I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. It's really sad. Um, and then here's the crazy thing about it is, um, let's just say, let me just throw my stuff out there, right? Let's just say I do. I'm not gonna even go to oil. Let's just say I do a pastel painting, right? Let's say I do a pastel portrait of 2 people. That's let's just go with 18 by 24. That's about trying to think of the top of my head with no way. That's about $400. Now that's like on the cheaper end. That's about $400, right? Every white customer that I've had have said, "Well, how long is it going to take? Can you have it ready by this time?" That's the only question they've asked me. They've seen my work prior to. They've never questioned my ability, and um, they've never tried to undercut me. Right? Black people say, um, "Oh yeah, I can open the lines up, man. Let me send you a link. Let me send you a link." Uh, Shoot, hold on for a second. 1 second. Let me put the link in the description. Yeah, I just put the link in the description, I think. Yeah. Let me know if you get it. If you don't, I can just shoot your email. Just send it to me and I can shoot your email to it. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. What's going on, man? How you doing? Give me one. Yeah. Sorry about that, man. What's going on, man? How you doing, man? I appreciate you for coming in.
I'm blessed, man. I'm good. How are you?
Man, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good.
I appreciate you open the line. A line to me. Um, very interesting discussion. One that I've had, in many spaces. And so, yeah, just appreciate the opportunity to build with you.
Nah, no problem, man. No problem. Like I said, I appreciate you joining my, trying to build my channel up, and sometimes it takes a while.
Yeah,
So it's kind of a grind, but I feel like these discussions, they need to be had, you know, more and more, especially with thinking black men.
absolutely,
You know what I'm
absolutely.
saying? But
Yeah, I've enjoyed your programming so far. So yeah, just stay with it, because we need perspectives such as yours and balance. I'm sure you can attest. There's a lot of stuff in the internet space on YouTube and whatnot, and it can kind of tip one side. So to
right,
have that balance, I think is really important.
right. I
But
appreciate it, man.
yeah,
Now,
but
what did you want to say? I know you was in there
yeah, I mean,
getting your Twitter
essentially,
thumbs going.
yeah. Essentially, I totally agree with you, and there's a great deal of historical evidence to support what it is that you're proposing. I just feel like there's this mental hurdle that we have to kind of climb and get over in order for us to galvanize and come together in the way that we need to.
Mm-hmm.
So a little bit of background, about me. I'm a clinical social worker by trade,
Hmm.
and but I have my undergraduate degrees in Africana Studies and Education. So the
Okay.
plan initially was to become a history teacher and to really go back into the community and teach our people about our history. Um, and so most of my opinions and everything comes from the little bit of knowledge that I have about history. And
Mm-hmm.
so from a historical context, when there wasn't this push for us to kind of integrate ourselves into the structure as we know it, the capitalist structure, and there were more blatant like systems in place that really excluded us from including ourselves. We tended to do a lot better just in terms of our thinking and our aggregating of resources, not just financial but brain power and our ingenuity and so on and so forth. And I think that as we push towards integration and the form in which we got it, it tended to kind of set us back, in my opinion, from embracing ideas such as yours. What you're proposing, it isn't new,
Right.
but I just think that our people are so, we're at a point, many of us, where we don't have the point of reference to say, our people have done this and it has been successful. So there's no confidence to move with individuals such as yourself and others who propose these ideas. I travel to the continent often. As a matter of fact, my family does. Like my sister is going to be in Sierra Leone. She secured dual citizenship last year, her and my niece.
Hmm.
I'm taking the steps now. I'll be in Morocco in April. She'll be in Sierra Leone. But I've been to about 15 countries on the
Hmm.
continent. So
Mm-hmm.
what you're talking about just in terms of like our ability to take our resources, and this is not just financial, this is, creative, this is brain
Mm-hmm.
power, to the
Right.
continent is definitely there. And other cultures have and are doing it, from
Mm-hmm.
Arab to Chinese to European. They're coming in, they have come in to the continent, and they've set up the infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm proposing to you is that how do we get our people to embrace and actually do the infrastructure work that it's going to take in order to get something like this off of the ground. You brought up Akon, but Akon is Senegalese and he has ties to his country, and so he was probably able to get things going. For
Mm-hmm.
us, many of us have never really been outside of our neighborhoods, let alone the country. We would need connections on the continent in order to get these things going. So, and the moment that you start proposing certain things to certain segments of our community, it's going to be met with just
Resistance.
resistance. So
Right.
that's what I wanted to put on the floor for the discussion that you're, for the conversation that you're having. Not saying
Mm-hmm.
that I'm against it, because I'm not.
Right.
Um, it's just like I said, there are so many psychological hurdles that we have to climb when it comes to our capability to actually even do something like you're
Mm-hmm.
proposing. So yeah, I'll mute myself. I know I
No, no,
ramble I
you
rambled a
no,
little bit, you know what
nah,
I'm
man, you
saying?
doing good. You don't have to mute yourself, man. That's Ghost coming in here. This is now.
Hey, hey, hey.
What's up, Ghost? How you
What's
doing, man?
going on, man? What's going
I'm
on?
good. What's going on with you?
And having a powerful discussion with Mr. Ishmael here. He just brought up an interesting point. Here's what
Peace,
I would
man.
here's what I think. And this may be a bit controversial, but this is how I got my connections to the continent. I intermarried.
Facts.
Um, and my wife is she's Nigerian. But I knew people on the continent before I married my wife. But it's nothing like knowing somebody or having connections with somebody from that actual culture that can
Right.
actually show you the ropes and things like that. And that gave me access to many things in Nigeria.
Okay.
Gave me access to political figures. My wife, she comes from a political family.
Okay.
Her uncle was like, I don't know what you would call it here. I don't know the equivalent of it being here, but I would say basically like I want to say a city councilman. It was a bit higher than that, but it wasn't a
Okay.
state representative. It was more like um, maybe a county clergyman. I don't know the exact like equivalency to it, but I think that for me, for especially for African American men and even African American women, I think intermarrying puts you right there, gained you access to all those resources, and is what white people did to gain access to a foothold to the Gold Coast and the Slave Coast and all that stuff,
That's
right?
what it used to be back in the day. Marriages were
Mm-hmm.
more like not necessarily for love, but they were for like convenience. You was like
Business.
putting together two families. Like your family is known for this. My family is known for this. We'll put our families together, pool our resources and whatever, and then we'll be stronger for it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
But
Networking. You
yeah,
you expand
networking,
your social network.
right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that we're going to be able to convince. I don't even think it's going to be a majority, because I think that our people,
Hmm.
um, I think we've been re-educated to believe that you know um, with integration. I think it got us to a point to where we forgot a lot of the things that happened to us. Like for example, um, the I'm listening to an audiobook, The American Slave Coast, which is the audiobook itself is about, I want to say about almost 30 hours long, man. It's like 28 hours long. And it was detailing, it's obviously it's detailing the formation of the Americas, but it's also talking about the impact that slavery had in it, and basically because of the shaping of the Americas and which routes they were taking, it led to them basically um, it led to the policies of slavery that we seen and we read about now, right? Like for example, when I was listening to it today, when I was messing around with my model car with the RC car, um,
Hmm.
it talked about Georgia originally was a colony that was supposed to be free of slaves, right? And then it was supposed to be this territory between South Carolina and Florida. But the founding of the colony, James Oglethorpe, basically wanted it to be a free colony. And But you had St. Augustine, um, um, that was run by the Spanish. It was free, and they was basically putting out saying, "Hey, if y'all can make it to St. Augustine, we'll give you land. We'll do pretty much the same thing with what the Americas, what America did with the expansion going west, right? Y'all go west, we'll give you this amount of land. You do this, just for you guys to explore. That's what the Spaniards was doing, telling the black slaves, if you run away, we'll give you this, we'll give you that. So it was causing a major problem for South Carolinians because in Georgia, the slavery wasn't, it wasn't prevalent yet. So that's when you get the what is it called? The Geechee Wars. All of those things come out of that whole situation. Basically, long story short, Georgia ended up becoming a slave colony, right? But when we're told certain things and we're given these token victories, like the election of President Barack Obama, you know what I'm saying, and other things like that, it makes us forget our true history, right? It makes us not want to fight anymore. It makes us not want to leave. Like, I know people right now. I told a girl that she was African American. She got mad and said, "I'm Black American." This is what she said. "No, I'm a Black American," right? And she was like, "I understand that I came from African ancestors, but I don't know them. So I'm Black American." I'm like, "You'd rather be a color than to be an ethnic group." And we only say that we're African. Like, I can honestly say now that I'm did my history, I could say that I'm part Cameroonian American, right? Because my people are the Massa people, and they're by Lake Chad and Cameroon and Chad, right? So I can say that, hey, I'm Massa. I know I have a a matrilineal line. It goes back to the Massa people, right? So, and I know I'm kind of rambling a bit, and I apologize,
No,
but
it's all good, man.
the problem is that America has tried to re-educate African Americans to forget our plight and our struggle, and to keep telling us to knock on a proverbial door, so to speak, but they're never going to really let us in,
Nah.
I
right?
agree with
They're
that.
never going to really let us in.
What
Josh, you
makes
were
it
saying?
even worse, man, is that you have you know there's deference that are given to certain figures among us to actually push that narrative,
Mm-hmm.
to have people forget, right? Like, I was listening to certain figures, former, like, pundits, used to be pundits during the Obama administration, that was like, we've arrived. There was this whole narrative that, like, we've arrived, and just, kind of chastising people who were speaking to the importance of making sure that, like certain other groups, that we don't forget,
Mm-hmm.
right? That we don't forget, and that the work still needs to be done. Um, there were many people who were skeptical of Obama. It was very symbolic in nature. That has been, historically the case in this country,
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to Black people. And so you had certain figures, and you still have certain figures, that when people will, speak up and say, it's important that we don't forget, it's important that we do not allow this complete indoctrination and whitewashing, you have those among us that will push back. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, they will literally push back against other Black people, saying, why are you bringing this up? And, can't you
Yeah.
see the progress in this, that? And
A
these
lot of people are
people,
just.
they
No, go
have
ahead. Go ahead.
to,
Go ahead.
yeah, like, that they are problematic as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I totally agree with your sentiment that, like, it's almost as if, like, the power structure would want us to just totally like forget everything and not bring up anything connected to our past, any of the atrocities that persist till this day, just in different forms.
Right, and I think in the feminization of our boys, the masculine, um, the masculinization of, that's a word, but just the what I see from our community now is us becoming the thing that we were brought here to be. The men were just supposed to be labor, and the women were just supposed to be wombs.
Breeders,
And
yeah.
And I see that happening, and I think that because we've had these symbolic victories, and then like you said, you have certain pundits that are pushing this narrative. Like you have the Al Sharptons of the world, if I can
Right.
call their names, the Michael Eric Dysons.
Oh my goodness.
You know,
Did you
and
hear
he's
that brother? That brother just went on a rant about the Supreme Court nominees. Did anybody catch that?
man. I didn't catch it. I tuned him out a while ago,
Man,
and
listen.
he doubles and triple talks and says things, and like if you're uneducated, you won't catch it. And he talks the way that he talks to sound like he's saying something more meaningful that he's actually not saying, right?
Agreed.
Um, and so those are the token people that are put up there to say, hey, see, listen, you know, this, and this, and that. But what about the Ice Cubes of the world who was proposing a plan for Black America?
Exactly.
You know, and no one wanted to meet with him about it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, you had Black women that say there's nothing in there for us.
Right.
You know, things like that. To me, that shows me where we're really at. Like my father, and Ghost knows this, but my father, you know, he got mad at me because I said, you know, I wouldn't vote for Trump or Joe Biden, but I will vote for Trump before I would Joe Biden, right?
Mm.
And my father got angry with me about that, and he called me all kind of names. And my father's in his 80s, but all he does is sit and watch MSNBC and CNN. Anything that's liberal leaning, he's going to watch it,
Okay.
right? And I don't really do mainstream news anymore because I understand that there's a lean. Everybody's trying to push you in a direction that they will want you to go, right? And so they're going to talk and say certain things. But we live in the age of, you know, when my wife was in Nigeria, I could talk to her just like I'm talking to you guys now. And that wasn't possible 10 years ago, right? It cost an arm and a leg to do that 10 years ago. So we live in an age and now where technology has literally connected us from around the world. So we can easily access this stuff. But the problem is we don't want to. We want to forget. Black people want to forget.
Mm.
They want to be accepted. Just like the whole point of this video. I mean, I obviously led into the bigger discussion, which I'm grateful for. But the point of it is that this is an institution. This is a league that was designed by white people for white people to prosper. And you're saying, hey, give up some of your power for me.
Right. Right.
And that's not going to happen. And even if you go and like I was talking about repopulating back to Africa and starting.
Jump up and climb up on this tree on the van and get back up.
Say that again.
The van. Excuse me.
What'd you say?
No, I was clearing my throat. Sorry.
Okay. But even when we're talking about going back to Africa and starting these things ourselves, you have to understand, and this is what Black people don't get. You're not going to make that type of money yet. It's going to take time to build up to it. But you are the workhorse. And that's something that we don't get. We are the workhorse. Everybody is, even in the music industry, right? They're prospering off of us. Like the Megs, I have yet to see Taylor Swift. What's her name? Hannah Montana that lost her mind. And they told her
she didn't lose her mind. She just is not a Disney kid no more.
No. This is what I'm saying. When she went to doing all that stuff to where she was twerking on Robin Thicke and throwing that tongue out like that, they say, listen, you need to go sit your way down somewhere.
I know who you're talking about.
Cyrus, what's the
Miley Cyrus.
Yeah.
Miley Cyrus.
Yeah, same chick.
They told her she wouldn't have like, she said, I need some me time. That's what she said, right? She went underground for about 2 years and came back and had her image and stuff back together, right? Mm-hmm. But they refused to let, and even when she had raunchier videos, like I said, raunchier, she never had those raunchier type songs, right? They refused to let her put that stuff out there, but they'll put Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B and all of them out there, have them front on the little album cover, like they straight up harlots. They don't care. But
I
that's the
watched a
image.
video about something like that where it was talking about like it's okay for certain people to put that type of music out and stuff. It's like if this is your message, then yeah, whatever. That's cool. We can do it. But like if it's like something else or about certain a different demographic of people, they don't care. It's like, nah, you can't do that.
No,
That's not what we do. He's like, you can't put that
no.
up there. Or you can't say that. It's like if you're talking about this and talking about that, then nah, we're not interested. Like we won't even play it on our radio station. Whatever. But
Anything
it's
you can look, and Dave Chappelle said this in his special.
yes, yes.
And he said that and it was powerful. You can kill a black man and you won't get canceled. But say something about that particular community, the alphabet community,
Right.
and they will cancel you. So anything that's derogatory and that can possibly taint the image of black people, it's fine.
Yeah,
Right?
it's cool to do
But
that.
brothers, I'm gonna ask you a question to that point though.
Okay.
So would could someone step in and say, well, these cultures that you're speaking of, they're setting a benchmark, they're setting a standard, right? Why haven't we as black people set a standard to where the Meg the Stallions and the Futures and so on and so forth, why haven't we placed limitations on that type of message?
In my opinion, because the leaders were killed
If other
off.
cultures are doing it and they have
Mm-hmm.
these safe measures in place, Whoopi Goldberg just learned a lesson not too long ago, right? The same lesson that Nick Cannon learned and other people have learned about that particular community, right? If
Mm-hmm.
these other cultures, we have other examples of standards that are set as to what's acceptable and what isn't. When do we turn in and look at ourselves and say, where are our standards? And why are they set this way?
Here's to answer that question. I'm up under the opinion and belief that you talking about generations upon generations of elders from each community leading and training, the replacement elders, so to speak. Okay, you're going to be the torch, the bearer. You're going to be the standard setter for the community, and everybody's going to look to that person in the community and stuff like that, right?
Mm.
Our leaders were systematically killed off. They were killed off, and the fathers were removed from the home, and they turned the African American community into a matriarchy, right?
Man, you say I'm talking about you want to grow. You saying you done said a couple of things, man, that put a target on your chest, bro.
Man, I've been having one on my chest for a while.
I've been talking. We be talking about it all the time.
You
It's
talking
like
about
it's
moving
only
to Africa, marrying African women, and now you're talking about, you know what I mean? Like, wow, okay.
But the thing,
I ain't mad at you.
But see, here's the thing. Here's the thing about it is, I was just talking to my eldest sister about this. I was like, I don't know how to pull my punch anymore because I did it for so long to where it was just like I'm pulling my punch. I'm pulling because I'm trying to be careful. And I realized something. I realized change never happens trying to be careful, right? And I'm not saying that I shouldn't learn how to better navigate these YouTube streets. You know what I'm saying? But it's just the truth. There's no way I can skirt around it. When you remove the father from the home, and you basically made the state the husband of the African American woman, then there's no one to set the standard. So now, when the state says the alphabet community is okay, it's okay. If the state says it's okay for women to, give their bodies up the way that the worst type of man, like that's what the thing about it is. They say, well, we want to be like men, but you want to be like the worst example of men.
Mm.
You want to be promiscuous, and no real man advocates for another man to be promiscuous. We tell you don't do that, right? We understand that, hey, you're gonna be a dude, you might have your urges, but no one is saying be a whoremonger. That's not what no one's waving that flag. But when you remove the leaders from the home and you open the woman up to, when you make the state the woman's husband, you basically have remove the covering and protection from the boy and the girl. And the boy's going to go up trying to find, he's emasculated because his mother was going to be emasculating him. So he's going to go up trying to find some type of masculinity. So what he's going to do, he's going to turn to people that's going to accept him and let him fulfill this false masculinity out there beating and gang banging and slanging and all the other stuff. That's not real masculinity, right? It's only a figment of it. Like that's like a perversion of it.
Agreed.
But the daughters are unprotected, so they're going to reproduce and replicate what they see. And now our community is basically, look, 85 to 90% of the African American community vote liberal. They vote Democrat, right? And the Democrats, the liberals, are the ones that's pushing all this stuff. So we don't have a real standard. And when you have men that try to come in, because how do I say this? The black masculinity, the black male's image has been so tainted to where our authority within the community is not recognized. That's really the difference between us and other community, right? The difference between us and other communities is that the masculine authority within that community is still recognized. You pump your chest in the African American community if you want to. I know too many good brothers. Matter of fact, we were just having this conversation today. Men that when they was, not even men, they were boys, 14, 15, 16 years old. When they got of working age, they had to go out and work and earn money for the household. And if they didn't give the money to the mom, she kicked them out.
Let me add my name to that list.
I've been there.
Let me add my name to that list, man. That's my life right there.
And it's okay. To try to go back and answer your question more thoroughly, I think that we're going to have to separate our community like a bankruptcy. You know, in bankruptcy, you have your bad debt and you have your repayable stuff that you can go forward with, right? I think that's what we're going to have to do. I think we're going to have to allow it's going to be the majority of the community to stay in that frozen, dead, we just want to be integrated state. And we're going to have to take the ones that want to come with us. And we have to accept the fact that it's going to be very small.
Yeah.
That's my solution.
I feel you.
What do you guys think? Ghost?
I agree, man. I mean, I already said that like a couple videos back. And it's like, some of these, man, you just got to burn the field down, use it for fertilizer and start over again. And it's like, when we used to go back and touch on to what you was talking about, politicians and politics and setting an example and basically putting a target on yourself, because no one wants to hear the right thing and be browbeat about what they is and ain't doing and stuff. No, most people don't want to hear that. It's like, I know I'm not doing this, but this is comfortable and stuff. So it's really like a lost. You feel like it's a lost cause at times, and it's like, so my approach to that is to reach one, teach one, reach one type approach. It's like, all right, I'm going to work with my little circle of influence and do what I can in my limited outreach or whatever. And it's like, I'm going to show and instill in you things that I think and things that you will see are helpful and to your betterment. And then once you do that, okay, you go out. Don't hold it. Don't be selfish with this knowledge and information. Pass it on, and you reach one, teach one. And if we are all like men of standard and setting examples and like holding each other accountable, your sphere or circle of influence is increased. So like, if I teach somebody and that one person teaches somebody and that one person teaches somebody, there's a whole bunch of people getting taught or held accountable and shown the right way.
Pass it on.
But yeah, because I'm I don't know if you know, I'm a fighter, I'm a coach and stuff, and I try to like instill like a good work ethic and fight knowledge into the group. But it goes so much deeper than that, just showing people how to punch people in the face and kick people and whatnot. And it's like, it's the way you carry yourself. And you're like, we had like bullies and hotheads that come in my class and stuff, and once they're humbled, their mind and their eyes are opened to like the possibilities. Like, man, this is these lessons that I'm learning and school of hard knocks I can apply to life. And it's like, and nothing that you want to be good at or nothing that is worth having comes easy. Everything has to be
Mm-hmm.
worked at. Everything has to be learned and whatever. And like, there's an old proverb: iron sharpens iron, steel
Mm-hmm.
sharpens steel, or whatever. So like, if I'm a hard man, or I'm the example of man that you look up and see in your sphere of influence or whatever, and you model yourself after me or other men of like mind that do good things or whatever, and we're all holding each other accountable and stuff, that just builds and grows exponentially. You're setting the example, and you're going through life like that. That's my approach to life, because like, I'm not trying to go get in the forefront and run for politics and stuff, because it's a dirty game. And like, and you might start off like, all right, you be hot for it, like, I'm gonna do everything I can, and you get in there and get ground down by the machine that you don't see, and all the seedy stuff that happens behind closed doors, and the backdoor deals, and this and that, and the threats. Because I got a friend that's a fighter just like me, and he's trying to go to politics and stuff, and the dudes get theft threats and stuff all the time, and
Yeah.
he's not doing anything other than trying to be the tip of the spear of change that needs to happen. Like, nothing he's saying is bad and stuff. He was sitting at the at City Hall with a little sign talking about, I think it's bad that we in America have shrines and memorials to like bad people. That'd be like going over to Germany and you seeing a statue of Hitler, and they got roses and wreaths and stuff and whatnot sprinkled all over it, and like thinking it's like, nah, that's a bad dude. But like, here in America, we got statues of like General Lee and like all the Southern commanders or whatever of the Confederate Army that lost or whatever, and we still got memorials and shrines up to them. And then people's talking about us, it's heritage, not hate. But your heritage is built on the backs and the shame and horrible things that happened all throughout history, which they are now trying to erase from the schools because nobody knows about it
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot, and go on and go forth like that. And I was like, that's crazy. I'm kind of rambling and spitballing a little bit, but all this stuff is like kind of interconnected or whatever. So you kind of have to say it. You have to bring attention to it. And then, like what you was talking about earlier, there are dudes that you try to say these things to, and they don't even want to hear it, or they're just oblivious to it because it's not in their field of vision,
Well,
Exactly.
and that in and of itself is bad.
I would say this too. I think it's also what you're saying, Ghost. I agree with, but I think there still has to be a collective effort, right? And so I think that needs to be a code and creed that should be established and come up under the umbrella of a tribe. Like, I think that one of the things that we don't understand is that in order for you to really make a lasting impact, because what we're talking about right now, what you were just talking about, is still individuality. I mean, still, you do this and you do this and you do that, and it'll affect change. But it's in my opinion, it still has to be a collective effort to come together and say, okay, we as a people, this is how we're going to move forward. That's why I said I think it has to be looked at as good debt versus bad debt. I mean, bankruptcy. I'm leaving this bad debt behind. And we have to understand that a lot of people are going to be opposed to it because it's not going to okay, when you ask people like you're Ishmael, you were saying that you're getting ready to travel to Morocco,
Yeah.
right? Beautiful people in Morocco, I mean.
Yeah. one of my favorite states in Northern Africa, man.
Really?
Yeah,
That's what's up, man. I've been to how many African countries I've been to? I want to say three or four. I've been to Djibouti. I've been to Seychelles. I've been to
man.
Yeah,
it's on the list, man. Seychelles is on the
list. Seychelles
yeah. It's on the list, man.
Seychelles is the way.
No spoilers. No spoilers.
Nah, I'm not gonna. All I'm gonna say is, man, is the way.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, it's the first place that I actually had lamb, and it was the oh my goodness.
Okay.
I was this how I'm doing the moment. Like, this is the way.
Yeah,
but I've been to Seychelles. I've been to Djibouti. I love the Djiboutian people.
Yeah.
Djiboutian.
Yeah,
That's a word.
Djiboutian people. Um, and if you, uh, I don't know, man. Like, if you go to Africa and you really take the time to get to know the people, you can't. If you look at the like if you like Morocco's a lot more stable than Nigeria, right? Even though Nigeria is supposed to be stable,
In
there's a
some
lot of
ways, yeah. In some
there's
ways.
right. Okay, I got you. But Africa is notorious for having those governments that really are totalitarian and they don't look out for nobody but their own people, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Remnants of colonialism, man. It's still
right.
alive and well,
Exactly. Like we was having a talk. My wife, she comes from a political family, so she was. We were actually having a conversation about, she was on a Clubhouse and they was discussing about Nigeria, actually breaking up. And some of the guys was like, they don't think Nigeria should break up and this. And my wife was like, well, what do you think about it? I was like, I think Nigeria should break up.
Mm.
And she was like, well, why do you think Nigeria should break up? I said, because Nigeria was put together because of colonialism, right? And I'm like, you have the House of Fulani in the north, you have the Yoruba, and in the south, I want to say the southeast, and you have Yoruba in the southwest, and you have the Igbo in the southeast, right? I think that's how it goes. And you have, Nigeria's, have a lot of different tribes and stuff that are kind of offshoots of the bigger tribes and stuff like that. But I said, do you not realize what the Book of Haram are help bent on destroying everything? Like they really believe that that they have the rights to that land because the British came down there and the British said, you know what? To make it easier for us, y'all are all one people. Y'all Nigerians.
Right. No
right?
consideration to ethnic lines, to kingdoms and states that existed before an Arab or a European set foot on that
Right.
continent. No consideration whatsoever.
Right. No consideration. Like you had the Kingdom of Benin that's in Nigeria. But then you have Benin, the country of Benin, that's like on the other side of Togo. Right. And so I'm like, they did that only for the purpose of making it easier to police and control. Right.
Facts.
They institute what we consider governors and stuff like that to keep order. But they didn't care about the fact that there was cultural differences of different ethnic groups or nothing. This was just easier, and that speaks to a larger issue of what colonialism did. That's all it did. It categorized people by saying, okay, you're a color, not an ethnic group.
Right.
Right.
You realize we're the only culture that has happened to?
What do you mean?
Like, you call us a Puerto Rican person Mexican in Texas, you'll probably get stabbed or whatever. It's crazy like that. But like, there are different. Everybody recognizes the difference of nationalities. Like, I'm Japanese, or I'm Korean, or I'm was it Chinese or whatever. They're all types of Asian. They're all different shades of yellow, but they don't call them a color. And then like there are all different types of Caucasian. There's German, there's Irish, there's Polish, there's all the gambit. They all look the same, but they don't call them white and stuff. But like, we're the only culture that has had that happen to us. But we're just as different and just as diverse. But it's like, whatever. African
Americans are a hodgepodge of different African ethnic groups.
Absolutely.
Right. That's how Africa was conquered, though. It was conquered because the Europeans purposely divided the African tribes because they knew if they stood together, they couldn't do anything with them. Like, do you know who Queen Nzinga is?
Yeah, they're making a movie out of her. It was supposed to be Viola Davis, I believe.
Oh wow!
Really? Well, anyway, the Portuguese had to rethink their whole strategy because of her. She was a bad mamma jamma.
Yes, she
let them come in.
She was like,
we want no parts of this. Y'all can take this back. Matter of fact, here's your messenger's head, so you know how I'm feeling about this.
They were just like, we're gonna have to wait till she die off. That's basically what they resign themselves to. And I think, was it the Portuguese that was that in Benin? Who was that in Benin that was basically robbing the what was it? Tar? What was it? Rubber. It was rubber trees. I want to say in Benin. And they basically just exploited the Africans. You know what I'm saying? They just that's all they did. And they, you know, end up causing wars and all these other things. Like the Biafran War that was in Nigeria was a Nigerian civil war. And when you get to the root of it, it stemmed from British colonialism. That's what it came from.
Yep.
Right? But it's like the hidden hand. No one really wants to look at the hidden hand of the situation. And so
it's not so hidden. They just don't want to talk about it because
I was gonna
force people to be
Yeah.
accountable.
right.
Okay.
I
Like
agree,
we know
I
we
agree
did
with the
this. I
brother.
know it's jacked up, but I don't really want to. That's too touchy. That
And I'm a
that hurts
huge-
my feelings.
I'm a huge fan of, you know, just kind of calling spades.
Yeah.
And there was definitely some complacency, you know, by certain African figures
Right.
when it came to, you know, the phenomenon that you know, the historical events that you spoke about. You know what I mean? So you know, we can't. I want to take it a step back if I can. You
No,
know,
go ahead.
because you know, no one speaks to what I call the OG colonizer and enslaver, and that's the Arab.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Before the European
Yeah.
ever stepped foot, I mean, you've been to East Africa, you know the Arab influence. The Arab, you know, the Portuguese and the British and the Dutch, they took the playbook from the Arab.
Yeah,
And
I think they was there like 700 years before.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I mean, just marching, you know, Africans, you know, all through the Sahara, from east to west. You know, down into Uganda and Zimbabwe, down, you know, into you know, what we now call you know, Cape Town. So like that influence is that hand, that is the true hidden hand. To the brother's point, I don't think that the European hand and European colonialism is so hidden. I really don't. If we want to speak of a hidden hand, we have to speak to, in my opinion, the Arab's hand, and the damage that not only they did, but in a lot of ways that they're still doing. Immediately, you know, Sudan comes to mind, and the Janjaweed and Darfur and these different, you know, things. You know, we have you know, we have a civil unrest in Sudan right now. You know, we have the separating of South Sudan from the north, and a lot of that was along ethnic lines, right? If you look at the Dinka people, these are 6 foot, 7 foot, beautiful chocolate minute bowl looking brothers and sisters, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
But the, you know, the Janjaweed, who's, you know, Arab mixed, did not want to share resources and share land and share. They wanted to monopolize these things, and you know, so that's the hidden hand. You know, the Arab hand. Some would say that the Chinese is the latest iteration.
Yes.
Of this
in the new Silk Road.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we gotta speak to that. You know, we gotta speak to that as well. You know, before I turn it back over, just to circle back to the original point, when it comes to taking resources elsewhere, you know, brothers and sisters here have to start traveling. I see sisters doing it a lot more, but brothers really got to go and lay eyes and feet and hands on the continent. You know, it's one of the few places left on the planet where the dollar is still strong in most places.
Dollar is very strong in the country.
So go, man, and stretch your money out, you know, and find out what opportunities are there. Network, you know, you can travel.
I would just say, just to give yourself a fuller picture of the world around you.
Well, that's true, but you know, I was just circling it back to the original point in terms of looking at opportunities and where you can kind of get in and fit. It is an
Yeah.
open market and an open landscape,
Mm-hmm.
and it does not take much. Sometimes when we as people think about what you want to accomplish, we immediately go to these grandiose type of, oh well, I need this amount of money. And yeah, money, you're going to need certain types, certain amounts of money.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go to a place where your money stretches, the conversion rate and such, really on the continent, it's about establishing social networks and
Mm-hmm.
capital, building social capital. And that's going to take travel several
Mm-hmm.
times, spending time with the cultures, spending time with the people, learning ways, putting some of that Americanisms behind you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And not imposing that. But definitely, brothers and sisters here need to start traveling to the continent more. I'm a huge advocate of that.
I am too. I always, especially with young brothers, I always tell them to get out and travel more and see the world, especially because I think that young African American men need to see that, okay, you're valued. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you grew up here, and we talked about this a bit earlier about being 15, 16 years old and having to start working and having that burden put on your back already. When I went to the continent, and when I go, I have a my wife's brother. He's how old is Jimmy? He's about 25, 25 or 26. And he ain't got no job. Right? But the
You
thing
got no
about it is,
job, Tommy?
but it's not it wasn't even thought about. He was 22, 23 years old in the house just chilling. You
Mm,
know, and I was like, well, what are you gonna do, Jimmy? He's like, man, I may go work. He's like, I may go back to grad school. I don't know. But no one was pressuring him
mm,
to get up and work and pay bills, and because we know on the continent bills and stuff are a completely different ball game. That's the other thing too.
right,
Your money is long on the continent because a lot of the expenses that we have here they don't have there. Now
right,
they have them in other, they have certain things in other ways, but you know the Nigerian naira right now is like on the black market is like, well, I don't call it black market, on the market, let's say it like that. It's like for every $1 it's like 550 naira.
wow,
And last year, 2 years ago, it was like for $1 was 350 naira. And so it's gotten so bad because a lot of people don't understand how currency works, and they don't understand the gold standard and what happened when the world went off the gold standard. The British pound, the Japanese yen, and the American US dollar became the new gold, right?
mm,
And most countries trade in those currencies, especially the British pound. The euro actually was up there for a minute, but I think since Brexit, it kind of, you know, maybe took a little tumble. I'm not for sure. I haven't researched that, but I know they stopped. I used to send money directly to my mother-in-law's account. She texted me, son, I need such and such, and it's in her account 2 minutes later. But the Nigerian government put a stop to that because they need an influx of cash, actually US dollars, to be in the country to make their currency worth more. So
right,
they so their currency value doesn't continue to dip in comparison to the US dollar. So they need more cash on hand. So every time I send her money, I have to send in US cash. They won't even give it to it in naira. They give it to it nothing but cash, right? Um, and so what she'll go in the market and she'll trade it in naira, right? So literally the money that I used to send her last year, 2 years ago, is double now to
right,
her. It's double, right? And I think that more, like what you were saying, Ishmael, I think more brothers and more, we just need to go. We need to go to the continent. And when you go to the continent, it's unlike any other feeling that you ever feel in your life. Something
facts.
tells you I belong here. I may
Yeah.
not know which country I'm going to settle in, but something says I belong here,
Hmm.
right? Um, it was so funny because I was walking down the streets of Nigeria and I seen this little white dude. I said, "Oh, a white guy," and it wasn't really a white guy. It was an albino black guy.
Mm.
So I was
That's
like,
funny.
talking about standing like a sore thumb, you know what I'm saying? Because it was just this sea of black faces, and it was just him. And when you seen him, like he had like red hair and his lips was like red and stuff like that. But um, I really do think that we need to like, man, I try to emphasize that so much, but a lot of these guys, you know, they still have that mindset, man. I'm gonna tell you, a lot of American men's problem is American women.
Yeah.
That's their problem. Um,
Man, here you go again.
my bad. But it's not even something I'm trying to say towards the women. Like, it's not even something I'm trying to say bad towards the women.
That's just the climate
Here
of
you
our
go again,
society,
brother.
man. It's a whole bunch. You can't. It's it's
But
bad. It's not nothing good, but it's the truth.
but the men here, especially African American men, have never been taught that they actually have agency. And what Ishmael and I, and what you're speaking about, Ghost, is agency. When you get up and get that passport and you start to travel, it does something to you. It's freeing, it's liberating, you know, for you to feel like, okay, I've seen this, I've seen this, I've seen. Like, how many people can say they swum in the Persian Gulf? I can actually
Nope.
say that. How many people that can say they swum in the Indian Ocean? I can say that.
Nope.
How many people can say they fished in the Niger River? You know, all of these particular things, how many people can actually say that? And it
It's
does
true.
something to you. Like when I was in Iraq and I took water from the Euphrates River and the Tigris River, something like that just does something to your mental.
Yeah.
That's be wild to me because them rivers is in the Bible, man.
They in the
Wow, wow,
Bible.
this is ancient water right here. I can
Yeah.
go down
Right.
here and find some John the Baptist water and whatnot. You know?
Yeah.
But it,
I'm
it,
like,
it does
wow.
something to your mental. And to your point, what you were saying earlier, Ishmael, about the Arab slave trade. Man, them Arab dudes, they was ruthless.
Yeah.
Oh
I
my
mean,
They
I
did the
God.
speak
same thing in
about
Egypt.
that. I speak about that because I don't know if you remember, brother, but I left a comment in your chat. I'm Muslim, so
Right,
I'm
right,
Sunni
right, right,
Muslim,
right.
and you know, a lot of times what I notice with American Muslims, you know, who happen to be African American, there's almost again like this need to kind of swap. And I'm like, if you only knew,
Mm-hmm.
if you only knew the history, you know, of how, you know, they treated your ancestors and how
Mm-hmm.
they still treat your ancestors and
Mm-hmm.
the effect that that is having up until the present day, the same way that you were so quick to speak against the pastor and and the deacons and all of them,
Mm-hmm.
you may be quick to speak against your imam,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, you know, having traveled to the Middle East, you know, I've been to Saudi Arabia, I've been to Oman, I've
Oman's
been to,
beautiful.
yeah, it is beautiful. I've been
Yeah.
to Egypt,
That's
um,
where I want to go.
and seeing the treatment of, you know, black Africans, you know,
Mm-hmm.
what the, you know, what some people would refer to as Bantu African, like
Mm-hmm.
by Arab peoples. It puts things into perspective, and then when you really start to read, that's another thing that we have to really push, encourage our people to read. You will see like, whoa, okay, so this is this isn't like a new phenomenon, right?
Mm-mm.
Like this is actually another page in a playbook that is a lot older than what we know it to be, right? And the European wasn't the first author in this book. He
Mm-mm.
wasn't the first scribe in this book. So it paints a, you know, context, a broader context. And to your point about what it does to you, you know, the first country that I went to on the continent was Ghana,
Mm. Gotta get to
and
Ghana. I gotta get
and
there.
I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. I got off the plane and I immediately, you know, walked in and I looked around and I just stood still for a minute. I just stood still. And unbeknownst to me, tears had started streaming down my face.
Mm-hmm.
There was a level of comfort
Mm-hmm.
almost immediately,
Mm-hmm.
seeing certain, you know, figures who are in authority roles or leadership roles, everything is black around
Mm-hmm.
me. Everything, everyone, well, for the most part, everyone,
Mm-hmm.
and then to have, because I arranged for private transport, um, and I remember when the brother took my bag, you know, he hugged me first,
Mm-hmm.
and then he took my bag, and he
Mm-hmm.
said, "Welcome home,"
Yep.
and he opened the door, and I got in, and we drove off. And I remember calling my mom. I was only 19 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I remember calling my mom and I was crying, and she was just like, "Oh my God, what's wrong?" You know how black mothers are, right?
Right.
Like, who did, baby?
Exactly. What they done did to you, blah, blah, blah,
Right.
or whatever. And I was just like, "Mom, like, it's just something, people speak in Christianity, what a Holy Spirit,
Mm-hmm.
right? It was definitely a spirit that came over. I left Ghana and have never been the same. It's a transformative experience, and I noticed that with every country that I go to and the cultures that I encounter, the warmth and the reception. Black Americans, especially Black American men, need to know that you are examined, you are mimicked, you are studied,
Hold on for a second, guys. Y'all go ahead.
you're examined, you're studied, you're mimicked on the continent in ways that you don't even realize. Your sphere of influence, you spoke about sphere of influence, brother, earlier, it extends all over the world. And so when you encounter people who are just in awe to come in contact with someone from America in real time, and for you to engage and for you to just be in a space of humility, and you're trying to engage and you're trying to make that connection, it is something that, like, it's transformative. Like it really is. It never ceases to amaze me, no matter where I go on the continent. Like, I always walk away with a nugget, something to kind of add to this wealth of, like, experience and
I
change.
apologize. I think my wife is beating up
Um,
my son. I'm sorry.
no, it's all good, man.
Uh,
I was just speaking to the sphere of influence that Black American culture has, not just on the continent but the world, and how
mm-hmm.
we really don't understand how much we're studied,
Mm-hmm.
how much we're mimicked.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh yeah, that's cultural appropriation all
yeah,
day,
I
man. Of course.
mean, it's there's this idea that there's this humongous bridge or divide between us. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not the case at all. To me, that's very psychological. It
Right.
really is. But you wouldn't know that unless you got that passport, got on that plane, you know what I mean? And made that trip. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, man, it's definitely, brother, what you're speaking about is definitely doable. I just think that it's going to take people stepping outside of their comfort zone. And it may be a small minority. You're correct. But
I
that
think.
minority has to step out and begin laying the groundwork, um, in order for us to realize it. Because I think that, like, we've talked about it ad nauseum, like we've talked about it enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's time for action now.
And to that point, I plan to move back to the continent within a couple of years. Um, and it's something that of Ghost know that I talk about pretty regularly. And one of the reasons why I want to go back is because I want to be a landing point for brothers and sisters that want to repopulate back to the continent. I don't
Well,
know.
man.
I don't know which country that I'm going to be in,
Mm.
um, and I'm still praying to the Most High about this. Um, but that's my plan, and I feel like I think that that's part of my purpose, right? And but I want to say this because I know you spoke about being a Muslim. I'm a follower of the Hamashiach, right? I don't subscribe to Christianity the way it is, but I do believe in following they call him the Christ, I call him the Hamashiach, right? And I believe in following it to its purest essence. And I think part of Black America problem is Christianity. I really do
Hmm.
believe that.
Yeah.
I think that it's I don't want to say it's a slave religion, but I do want to say that it's a perversion of the original faith, the Hebrew
Facts.
people, right? And I think that the way the Europeans have done it, it was like I said, it's nothing but a perversion. If you go back and you see the formation of the original, the quote unquote Catholic Church, you really realize that they basically, you know, took what they wanted and kept the rest. You know what I'm saying? They kept the
Yeah.
things that was beneficial towards them, and then they instituted a lot of paganism within it. You know,
Yeah.
um,
It's because it's a form of control, man. That's like divide and conquer 101. Like it's certain things that you do to when you're coming into a like the Arabs did it. Like every conquering nation of another people has done this. They come over, they take over their military, they take over their religion, they take over their money, and they take over their women. It's like five main things that they do. And if you do all those five things, it's like guaranteed that that country is now yours. You've been assimilated. It is you do what you want to do, run it how you want to run it.
Absolutely.
but
Yeah.
the thing about it is that most people don't even realize that all the Arab lands that are being currently held now were originally black,
Yeah,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Europe was originally black, especially Southern Europe, the Iberian Peninsula, where you got Spain and Portugal and all that, the Moors and the Bergers, and there's just so much history there. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And
the Moors, and then you're not gonna learn it here. You got to go do some extra study stuff.
right, but the thing
Hmm.
about it is that Christianity won't allow people to get outside of that box because they're so afraid of like. My wife and I was having a conversation, and I was talking to me and her was talking about this the other night, and we were talking about polygyny, right? And we were talking about me taking that second wife. Now we weren't talking about, hey, this is what I'm actually going to do, but we were talking because that was a real conversation that I had to have with my mother-in-law. You know, when I got ready to marry my wife, she's like, "Are you going to take a second wife? If you're going to take a second wife, I'm not giving you my daughter."
Wow.
Right? And I was like, "No, I'm not going to take a second wife." For my wife, she's never pushed it like, "Hey, take a second wife," but she's always said little subtle things to me that led me to believe like, you wouldn't have a problem with me actually doing that. you know and so flat out the other night I asked her about it, and she told me her thoughts. And um and I was talking to somebody about it, about not what me and my wife talked about, and I'm not going to share what we talked about on here, but I was talking to somebody about polygyny. Was actually called polygyny when man have more than one wife. It's not polygamy. Polygamy is the act of multiple spouses. But they couldn't believe that it was biblical. They couldn't understand that it was
Oh
really
yeah.
biblical.
Absolutely.
And I was like, yeah. And it was like, well, why ain't it legal here? I'm like, you can't confuse the law of God with man's law. Like you can't confuse the two, right? And the, and I had to express to him, I was like, the Most High told David, when David took Bathsheba, eyeballing that man's wife, watching her bathe, like, man, who's that over there? Sheba, Bathsheba, you know. That was a joke, but
I'm talking about Uriah. What's the brother's name?
he took
Uriah,
he took
right?
he took Uriah's
Yeah.
wife, and David took
Yeah,
Uriah's
yeah.
wife.
Uriah's wife. Yeah.
Right. And the Most High reprimanded him about that. I mean, he really, because people don't think he really punished David. He punished the hell out of David, right? He just didn't kill David, but he punished the hell out of David. Like David had like four, I want to say 3 or 4 children that died behind that. A daughter that got, jumped on by one of her brothers, and brother killed one of the other brother, and brother, overthrew his father for a time. So it was bad. But the point, what I was saying is that the Most High told David that I gave you all of these things, wives, land, riches, and if you needed more, you need only ask. And I'm like, he will not, God is not going to sin against himself, right? So, and they always talk about Paul. Like a lot of Christians don't know the Bible. They do not know the Bible. But they always talk about Paul. And they always talk about Paul said, well, a man's supposed to have one wife. I said, no, he was talking about leadership, right? So if you want to be in a leadership position, you are supposed to be the husband of one wife, right? So I said, no, it's very permitted. The 12 tribes of Israel themselves was founded off of polygamy, right? So when we
That
can't,
was the whole. Go ahead.
Christianity doesn't deal honestly. It doesn't. It don't deal in honesty, right? That's why Christianity, to respect of you, your faith, Ishmael, Christianity is scared of Islam because they don't understand Islam. It doesn't know what Islam teaches, right? And that's why I can be in an Islamic country, in a Muslim country, and be at home, feel at peace, And I've talked to Ghost about that before. Like I can be like when I was in UAE, I was cool. Like there was literally no problem with me. I was like, hey, I'm cool. This is what I believe in anyway, because the true way of the Hamashiach and Islam, they don't differ all that much.
Not that much, no.
So I think that our people's problem is Christianity. Like black people will pay their tithes and know they got a bill due and be talking about, well, God is going to deliver me. And I'm
He's
like,
gonna provide. Like
right.
That was my parents' biggest falling out. Mom would make one of them sacrificial offerings, and Dad get home and realize trying to balance the bills. Like, what happened to this? He's like, I put it in church, and it's like, that was spoken for, right? And he's like, oh, it's okay, it'll be all right. And I was like, no, it really won't.
Can I throw a question out there real quick?
Go ahead.
So, because I've seen it in a lot of the predominantly, countries, Islamic countries. What is your take then? Because I have a take as it pertains to Islam as well. What is your take on the spread? What I've seen as the spread of not just Christianity, but like evangelical Christianity on the continent.
I hate it.
Okay.
I hate it. And I'm tell you why. Because it's that evangelical part.
You mean the TV Christian people?
Yes.
Mega church.
Mega churches
folks?
and stuff.
No.
I absolutely hate it because you see the pastor in Nigeria driving a Benz.
And everybody else walking.
And I'm talking about they're walking and don't even, the lights get taken every night. Folks ain't got gas for their generators, but the pastor good, right? And he telling you should pay your tithes. And the Nigerians are some very intelligent people. Them dudes are like highly intelligent, like, and they be saying some smooth, they be saying some slick stuff that I'm like, it'll get the average Joe. Like if your spider senses are not calibrated properly, man, he get you. You be, you be coming smooth about your monthly salary. In Nigeria they get paid like 100, what, $40,000 a month if you got a good job. And that's not really a whole lot, but maybe that's like $200 now. And man, you be giving your whole paycheck to this pastor because he done told you something about that the Most High God spoke to him and told him this and this and this and that, and all of a sudden you feeling guilty, so you giving up. Now you can't eat. Now you out here trying to rob your neighbor's chickens because you're hungry. It's really bad, and I think that they're only mimicking what they see from this whole evangelical movement that was in it, like the 90s and early 2000s with the Creflo dollars,
like the little crazy dude, the TD Jakes and all them.
Yeah, and I can't stand those cats.
What's the white dude? What's the white guy that was in Houston? Joel. Yeah, like he didn't let the people into the church when their stuff was flooded and whatnot.
Yeah, but Joel Osteen talks with that and you know what God says about you? He loves you. and they get hooked on that because like, oh man, God loves me. Like, you
Hey,
do
Joel told me
realize
so.
that this stuff is like the thing that I don't like about Christianity. What it teaches is that it teaches unconditional salvation.
Mm,
You know, and your salvation is always supposed to be conditional. Like there's levels to this. Like there's rules to this, right? There's the law of God, right? Like the thing that and it's so easy. I hate when people when it comes to this when it comes to the Shabbat, right? There's not a debate. The Shabbat was on. It literally means the seventh day, but the Catholic Church turned it into the Sunday. Sun worship. That's what Sunday is about.
Yeah,
Sun worship.
exactly.
mm,
And when you try to, like I said, our people are so lost because when you try to talk to them about this stuff, you know, in Nigeria, if you don't go to church, something wrong with you. In Nigeria, if you don't go to church, there's something really wrong with you. And so my wife, you know, she came from that background, hard and heavy. And we was talking about tithes one day, and I was like, look, I don't pay tithes. I'm not gonna pay tithes. It ain't happening. I was like, it's not happening. I'm like, I would give to the needy before I would. I mean, I have no problem. I give to the needy all the time, but I'm not going to pay tithes. Nope, I'm not doing it. So my wife was like, "Well, why don't you pay tithes?" And which is something I had already talked to her about because prior to us getting married, we had these discussions, and I think that's the problem with a lot of people. They don't have those discussions. I think the perfect pairing is an African American man with an African woman, but I think the African American man. I think the African American man has to have a certain awakening in his mind
facts.
because when I married my wife, there were certain things that she did that I was just not used to. I was just not used to. I wasn't used to being able to tell a woman no, and it was all right. Like just that simple thing, like, no, we can't do that, baby. And it was like, okay. you know, you
Right,
thinking like
right.
you're gonna be plotting on me later. You know,
Yeah.
you gotta, you know, I wasn't used to a woman not trying to put her hand on the steering wheel to try to steer where I'm trying to steer. Um, Like, let me just give an example. My wife, when she got here, she would tell me, "Call me when you're on your way home from work." Sometimes that would be 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, right? And I wouldn't. I'd be like, "Man, she's asleep." You know, I'm not gonna call her. She's asleep, and she would wake up and call me, be like, "When are you coming home? When are you gonna be home?" And I was like, "Well, I'll be home in like 30 minutes." Why didn't you call me, baby? And I hear her get up out of bed. I'm like, "What are you doing? You have to eat." And she would get up at sometimes 2, 3 o'clock in the morning just to fix me food. Right?
Man, listen.
That will blow my mind. It blew
Listen.
my mind.
Woo.
Say what, Ishmael?
Man, listen. Brother, I mean, as someone who, my ex-wife was from Sierra Leone. We met in
Mm-hmm.
undergrad.
Mm-hmm.
You're delivering a good word right now. You're delivering a good word right now. Okay. There is some undoing in terms of what we've been conditioned with and by. It takes time, but it
Mm-hmm.
definitely is possible. That's because, I hate to say this, but I do believe that it's rooted in truth. Most of us here have seen nothing but matriarchal structures.
Oh man, you
Yeah.
remember that warning you gave me earlier?
Yeah.
But it's true.
It's true. Whereas on the continent, okay, patriarchy is not a bad word.
Uh-uh.
It's not a bad word. And it is so different from Western or Eurocentric patriarchy,
Mm-hmm.
right? See, a lot of people, especially here in the States, it's a buzz term. Everything
Mm-hmm.
is patriarchy, patriarchy, patriarchy. But how many people actually understand the origins of patriarchy as we know it and how it differs across cultures?
Mm-hmm.
Very few.
Very few. This is why you can see Louise and Maria, right? The same thing that you just described with your wife. You can see Maria does the same thing with Luis.
Mm-hmm.
Luis has spent all day on the freeway selling oranges. By the time he gets home, Maria has his plate made, right?
Mm-hmm.
Clothes is washed, everything is set up because she knows he's going to go back out there again tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone plays their part. There is an order. There's a structure that's in place. Most Black American men, we didn't see any order. We may have been fortunate enough to see remnants of it with
Mm-hmm.
grandparents and maybe great grandparents if we were fortunate. But I'm a Gen Xer. I'm not going to tell y'all my age because I don't want to get clowned. But
We probably the same age, man. We ain't that much younger than
Me,
you, if
I'm
at
barely
all.
a millennial. I barely made it in the. I'll tell you my age. I'm finna be 40, so I mean, it's no not.
okay, all right. So I'm in good company. So you may have seen remnants of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it is my
Oh,
generation,
yeah.
I believe, where you really started to see the effects of certain policies in the 60s and 70s as it pertains to the Black family unit. What I
Mm-hmm.
call
Yeah.
the war that was waged on the Black family unit. You really start to see the effects in
Mm-hmm.
Generation X. You really
Mm-hmm.
start to see it, right?
Yeah.
Now it's so enmeshed, it's woven into the fabric. It's like blood on cashmere.
Mm.
It's really hard, you know, it's damn near impossible, I think, at this stage to salvage that sweater.
Nope.
All right.
You know, on the continent, you're starting to see some, I describe it as a cancer. You're starting to see little pockets of this cancer popping
Mm-hmm.
up in certain spaces.
Mm-hmm.
But well, I'm not even going to say the old order. The order, the existing order, where everyone plays a role, patriarchy is not a bad word, gender roles is not a bad term.
Mm-hmm.
They still exist. They're still
Mm-hmm.
there. And so, you know, I was just attesting to your good word because you're speaking a good word as someone who has like almost predominantly dated nothing but African women. I've married two. Um,
Mm.
yeah, it's different. And once you go there, you can never go back.
Right.
You can never
Right.
go back.
Right. Once you had a slice of that donut, you
you
like,
you
nah,
you can't,
you
man.
can't.
Like you really can't. You
And
know.
I don't, and I can't. Like, if you never experienced it before, it's hard to just convey. Like, I remember my friend got mad because he was like, "Man, what you was doing?" I was like, "Man, I couldn't leave." Yes. He was like, "I thought you had already left." I said, "Nah, my wife wouldn't let me leave." He's like, "Why? I was fighting." I was like, "Nah, she was just cooking me breakfast." He went off. He's like, "Man, I got two of these sorry sons of bees in his house." And no one. He would smooth out. And I was like, "Hey, man, calm down." "No, hell no, I ain't coming no down." You know, he's just going off about it. I was just like, "What?" He's like, "Bro, do you realize how she wouldn't let you leave? She wouldn't let you leave to cook? Are you kidding me?" He was like, I was like, "Yeah, man, but it's like it's normal for her. Like it's a normal thing. Like the stuff that she does, it's
That's
so
home
normal.
training. It's in culture.
It
It's ingrained
right,
in her.
It's
and it
cultural, yeah.
and it's nothing that I could do. Like the submission is yeah. There's a willing submission to me, but she don't. My wife doesn't ask me about bills because she already took care of all that stuff. You
That's what
know.
it is. Let me pause you right there. That's what it is. It is a confidence. You spoke earlier about there not being a confidence or a valuing of Black boys and men. They
Mm-hmm.
don't see us as leaders. They don't see us as providers. They don't see us as protectors. Whereas through your example, your wife is able to see those qualities, those traits. You are upholding your end of the contract.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So naturally, she's going to fall in line and hold up her end.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of our women here don't even give Black men an opportunity
Oh,
to show that. And for those black men who exhibit that, who exude that naturally, they have their own blinders on. They can't even recognize it or appreciate it.
Right. But here's also the thing too. I think our women here have a strong fear of abandonment too.
Yeah.
Facts.
Right. They they um they say they don't need us, but the truth of the matter is it makes them angry because they know that they do. Right. And they have a tendency to project. And so I've seen women have good men and they would wreck the ship on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
They'll do it on purpose just to say,
Self-sabotage.
right, they'll self-sabotage just to say he treated me bad because they're trying to fulfill that mental mandate that white supremacy has taught them about
Oh,
black men.
Yeah.
So what goes?
I agree. That was my cosign sound.
Yeah. And so when you go on the continent, and that's why for to say something else that's gonna get me banned. I do not encourage African American men to marry African American women because
Man.
when you go on that continent and you can just be all you have to do is be a man and you get treated like that and you like wait a minute I just got to take care of my responsibility and I'm just gonna get all this in return, so I get respect, submission, thing whenever I want it. You know what I'm saying? I get all this as in return because a lot of those women over there, most people don't realize they're used to sharing men because those brothers on that continent, they'll have a wife and two women on the side, or they're
Oh, women here are used to it too.
yeah they are, they just don't want to readily,
They
they
just
just
don't
don't
want
want
to.
to just formally admit it like hey we sharing men. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
They want to just call us
Make
oh she
songs about it.
decide
Papa was
me,
a Rolling Stone.
right?
Yeah, they share men
But
too.
they share men too, and here's the crazy thing: when you do the stats, like you hear women talking about all these men just be making these babies, and no, it's actually the opposite, right?
Minority segment. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 54% of African American men don't have kids,
Mm-hmm.
and like what is like 75-80% of African American women have children,
Yeah.
but they're only making it with like 10% of the men,
Yeah.
like 10 to 20%. And it's like when you think about those numbers, it's like so all of y'all are getting knocked up by like a handful of dudes, and you're blaming every African American man for your choices that you're making. And when you go on the continent, man, you just don't have to deal with that. Like that's the one thing that you're not, if you are a man, they're going to treat you as such. And I'm not saying every woman on the continent is perfect because they're not,
Right.
but
Yeah, butt heads are
they
universal.
right, they will
Exactly.
hold the women on in that particular culture will hold her accountable. She's a very bad girl, very bad, very this silly girl. That's what they call her.
Mm-hmm.
She's a silly girl. Oh my God. She's mad. She's mad. You know, they say stuff like that. And you'd be like, I think something wrong with old Charlita over there. But, you know, and I think for me, I think that here's what I want to see. I want to see the minority of African American men that are willing to do this come together as one tribe and make a mandate and say, this is what we're going to do. Because I think they tried it before. I mean, like you said, this has been tried before, but I think go back to the formation of Liberia, even the British when they tried to form Sierra Leone, but white folks had their hand in it, and I think it was
Yeah.
just it wasn't a okay. We're gonna go back and because just take for instance my last name, I can go back. So I take me and my sons and my wife back, and family in Africa is big, is
Mm-hmm.
huge, and family name in Africa is huge. So it's like okay, that man comes from this stock, so it's automatically going to give you a certain prestige,
Yeah.
you know. And I think that's what we're going to necessarily have to do because every African woman I've met when they've come into contact with African American men, they've always had positive things to say because our conditioning over here has made us more uh, approachable and what's the word I'm looking for? Agreeable.
Yeah.
You know, those African cats, a lot of them cats ain't going for that stuff they women be talking.
Yeah.
They not going for it.
That's so
You know,
true.
they not going for it. So for a woman to be able to just, talk to her man and get her man's ear and him to consider it is a big deal. And my wife was saying that um, like my wife don't deal with African American women. She don't.
Wow.
They don't like her. They
Oh,
don't like her.
they don't like her.
Nah, the African American women don't like her.
Okay.
Now, when they get to know her, they're like, "Oh, she's sweet," but she took one of their men. That's how they see it. Even though they rejected me, you know what I'm saying. Even though you need to get with the program, and it was all that. With African American women, the African American men belong to them.
Mm.
That's how they see it, right?
Yeah.
And it was I can kind of tell it, bothered my wife when she first got here. But she kind of persevered through it, and then like the white women accepted her. They was like, hey, how you doing? And how do you say your name? And they pronounced it the first time going, whatever. But the African American women here, they didn't take to her that. They just didn't. There's women in my family. I think the only person in my family that reaches out to my wife on a regular basis is my mom. But
Wow.
I come from a family of I have 10 aunts. I had 6 sisters left. I had 7 sisters, and they don't reach out to my wife at all. And they think that because of the way I treat my wife, she's my man. Listen, I'm gonna say it like this right here. I'm gonna stop talking. I'm getting ready to bring this to a close because I got to go in there and help her before she killed my son. like she's been in one of those moods all day. So I'm like, man, let me get you out of here for you to escape the jaws of death because you keep playing with this woman and she ain't playing. She go to speaking in Yoruba. I was like, oh snap, he finna get like he finna get. Like I walked in there one day and he had made her mad, and I came in the kitchen and she had backed him. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
And I was like, I hadn't seen her back him in a while. Like he was like a baby. She backed him. And she's like, I was like, why you backed him? She's like, it's either that or I punch him. I was like,
whoa, okay. Yeah, go ahead. I prefer that over punching.
Right. Like,
go ahead, tie him up.
She said something similar to that. I was like, okay, all right, let me get
discipline. Discipline. That's another thing that discipline is very important. It's very. Yeah. So I ain't gonna take your word from me, but discipline.
So Ishmael, are you currently married?
I'm not married.
Okay.
I'm not married. But I plan to be very soon.
Okay.
Currently having conversations with Sudanese family, trying to get some things together, as you may know.
Hold up, Sudanese?
Sudanese, yeah.
Oh
Sudanese,
my God.
from Sudan, yeah.
Oh, the women are so beautiful.
So you got to set terms, man. We got to make sure that everything is appropriate. When it comes to bride price and what we call mahr. We call it mahr in Islam. So we got to set the terms. But I met the family recently. In a couple of months, they're going to meet my family. And so keep your fingers crossed for me.
Yeah.
Man, we'll be communicating and stuff. So
I hope so, man.
I get excited when I hear brothers talk about the bride price.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I don't get excited because that's going to require a second job, man.
It can be steep. Sometimes
it's going to require second jobs.
My bride price, and my wife's father was like, we're not going to break Joshua. So I was like, thank God.
Yeah, that's what you want.
Right?
That's what you want. You want a father that's going to be like, look, my ex, my father. I still refer to him as my father-in-law. He's transitioned. He was like that as well, because he didn't want us to start, with debt.
Yeah.
We were young. I got married when I was 20 years old. Only after 6 months, I went to a Black Student Union meeting. I saw her. She was from a visiting school. I saw her across the room. Looked like a Hershey bar standing up against the wall. I was like, I gotta have that. I have to have that. Yeah, 6 months later, man, we got married.
But
Um,
one of the things too that a lot of African American men may not be used to. I know you're used to this by now. You know, I've done it, so I know I'm accustomed to it as well. The family is going to be heavily involved.
yes,
Heavily
yes,
involved. Like
yes.
they're like my wife's father and her mother right now. I can pick up the phone and be like, we're having some trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And they're gonna like, okay, we will set some time aside and we will talk to you guys tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And when they talk, it's a matter of resolving that situation,
Right.
like flat out. And like if you're saying something like like if you have legitimate complaints and like she's not doing X, Y, and Z, do not worry, she would not do it again. That's
Mm-hmm.
what they will say to you, and they will
Reset.
come down on her
They're gonna
hard.
reset. Yeah.
Right. They will come down on her very hard. And it's one of those things to where it's a shame on the family for her to be acting out of pocket. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we gave you away to this man and you're over here, you know, showing your fork point of contact. No, we're not gonna have that. But
Right.
Sudanese, man, listen.
Same way. Same way. The
Mm-hmm.
family has. I actually welcome that.
Me too. Me as well.
Especially considering that I really did not have that on my side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but having the family there as mediators, as counsel, as support, it takes
That's
a
how it's
lot of
supposed to be.
it takes a lot of the pressure
No.
off. It
It
really
does.
does. It takes a lot of the pressure off, and it resets things to where you and your wife, or your partner, your spouse or whatever, you get back to basics. You remember
Mm-hmm.
why you came together.
Mm-hmm.
They remind you of why you came together, the importance of the institution of the union. It's almost like you need that refresher. You need that someone to come and jog that your memory. Too often we're so quick to discard here in this
Mm-hmm.
country, well, just in the West, period.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go abroad, you'll realize that other cultures don't approach marriage that way.
Mm-mm.
Uh-uh.
It's really about healthy conflict resolution. It's reminding everybody of what their roles are, and you'll get checked. If you're
Mm-hmm.
not holding up your end, you'll get checked. It's
Right.
not just they're going to come down hard on you. They'll come down, I mean, on her, they're going to come down hard on you as well.
Right.
Mhm.
But I think that that's something, that's missing. And to the brother's point, yeah, it used to be like that. It
Mm-hmm.
used to be like that. Yes.
Yeah, that was before the removal of it's so funny because I've heard women say that, like, where are the men? And I'm like, you removed him. Like
Pretty much.
you were complicit in his removal. Like, I have a family member, my brother-in-law. He didn't want my niece to go to a certain school and going to college. And my sister was like, well, she going. So you can either. And I was sitting there looking at her. I was like, man, I'd have took this feline and threw it at your head, like for real,
Mm,
because you're not even respecting his authority. And for his part, okay, I guess she can go. So she went to the
Yeah.
school that he didn't want her to go to. I'm like, man, you paying the bills. Like, we're the only culture, like, because we lack thereof. But if in that African family, if they told you you ain't going to Sudan University, you going to, you know, wherever university, I don't know, and the universities in Sudan, but you know what I'm saying.
right.
If dad says you ain't going, you ain't going.
That's it.
That's it. That's in the discussion. And I don't want to hear this stuff about I'm grown. I could do. They don't care nothing about that. They don't care nothing about the
No.
fact that you over age 18. They don't care nothing about that.
No.
They will cut you smooth off from that family if you play that radio like that. And there's no consequences for disrespecting the African American man here. Matter of
No.
fact, it's a thing of adulation and celebration to do
Sadly.
that. But I think that's why I say I don't advocate for African American men to marry African American women.
Yeah, we're gonna have
Um,
to talk about that, and maybe in your next show, man, because I don't know if I'm there. I don't, that's very absolute, and I don't know,
no,
man.
see, now I didn't say that they shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I don't advocate for it.
Okay.
You know what I'm
Yeah, I am
saying?
opposed. Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
there's some good sisters, and there's some sisters that, are just like us. They're very, thinking about, okay, what is best. There's some good sisters. So I can't say that, but for
Yeah.
me, it's
For
like
you. For
needle
you.
in a haystack,
Yeah. Yeah. I will
and
agree with that. Yeah.
I think that there's a codependency on the United States government too
Mm.
much. And even when it's like, okay, well,
Mm-mm.
I haven't relied on the government to um, pay my bills or provide housing or whatever, I'm still relying upon the government to keep you in check. And I think
Mm.
that whenever you have that
Whew.
that rifle aimed at your head, you can't properly operate as the head of your home,
Mm.
right? You raise your voice in the house, you have fear that this woman going to call the police on you. I mean, one thing my wife said to me, I said something, and I was like, "What you was going to do? Call the police?" She's like, "Why would I call the police on my husband?" Like it was
Mm.
like, because I'm like,
Unfathomable. She couldn't
it's
even fathom.
she
Yeah.
couldn't even fathom that. She's like, "You're
Mm-hmm.
my husband. Why would I do such a thing?" Because in Nigeria, calling the police is almost a death sentence. I mean,
Yeah.
for us over here too. But
Exactly.
you get what I'm saying? And so it's like them dudes be floating in the Niger River.
Yeah.
And be like, he fell. We tried to take him in custody. He fell and he hit his head. So,
Yeah. Repeatedly.
right. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like, ignore that knot. You know what I'm saying? He like a whole different now he look mongoloid instead of negroid. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
so but it's like when you have a for me it's about cultural upbringing. And when you
Yeah.
have a woman that's been raised and her man is devalued, right? And she has the, like I said, the weapon of, I can put you in jail. Because
Escape.
in most states, if they call, you're going.
That's
It
it.
doesn't matter if you've done anything, right? So marrying in the West is kind of dangerous anyway.
Yeah.
Um,
A lot of liability now.
it's a lot of liability, man, and it's like, and it's state sponsored, right? When
Yeah.
I was going through my child support situation with my ex-wife, when I realized, like, this is pushed, like it's incentivized.
Yeah.
You really, like, man, like I can't in good faith encourage these brothers to do this. Like,
Yeah.
I just can't. But I would never, like I tell brothers this: if that woman has an awakening in her mind and she's anti-government and she's all about building the family and then yeah, you have to do what the Most High leads you to do.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But like I said, you would not see me waving my African American woman flag. You won't see me doing that. There's just so much damage that they've been so complicit as a group. I'm not saying stragglers and outliers, but as a group, they have been just as complicit with destroying the black man since the '60s as white supremacy has.
Oh
Now,
man. You can't do it like that, man.
now,
Yeah,
well,
yes, you can. It's the truth, man. It's like
I'm gonna say it
it
like
doesn't
this.
He
taste
gonna,
good,
he
but
gonna
that's
end
what
the
it
show
is.
like that, man.
No, okay, I'm gonna say it like this. I think that the the default setting of most African American women, I'm gonna say most, is to be the new overseer of the black man.
Ooh.
I think that's the default setting, and I think that's why they respond. Like my, for example, um, my son, he had an essay that he had to do at school, right? And for whatever particular reason, he didn't handle the situation. My 14-year-old, he didn't handle the situation, in the best light. But I gave him room to make that mistake. And I'm, as his father, I'm sitting back like, that's not gonna go the way you think it's gonna go. But I'm gonna go ahead and let you do that. And then so when you get that bad grade, I'm gonna be looking at you crazy, right? So he decided he let somebody hold his computer at school. I mean, let somebody hold his charger at school. Person lost it, so he couldn't do his assignment because he couldn't power up his computer. So he put a work order in for the charger, but they're not gonna have it till Monday. But his assignment was due Friday, right? So he said, well, I'm gonna ask my teacher, can she give me an extension? So he was talking to his mama because my sons, they live with me. So he was talking to his mom about it on the phone. And I heard her in there barking at, no, another thing. You know what I'm saying? So she was barking at it. I'm hearing it from my office. I'm like, man, she's barking at it, So he's like, but mom, she's like, hold on, let me tell you something. She's like, and so he hung up the phone. So I was like, let me go ahead and get me some OJ. So I walked in the kitchen, and he was sitting at the bar in the kitchen, and he had this look on his face like like Anakin before he would try to break Mace Windu. You know what I'm saying? Before he went to that Sidious Mace Windu fight. You know what I'm saying? So I said, you all right? No, Dad. No. And I was like, well, what happened? Mom just frustrated me so bad. He started crying. And I was like, she frustrated you? He's like, and he's 14. So he's sad, but he's angry. You know what I'm saying? Right. So he's like, you see the little, steam come from his nose like he a bull. You know what I'm saying? And you see the tears come from his eyes. I was like, man, come in the back. Come talk to me. So he walked in the back. And I was like, what's wrong? And he's like, man, I was trying to explain to Mom. He's crying, got tears in his eyes. And I said, calm down. Talk. He said, I was trying to explain to Mom about the situation about my essay, this, that. She was like, I could have did this, and I could have did that, and I couldn't have did it because I didn't have, he was like, I couldn't do my essay because I didn't have basically the syllabus for the essay. Sorry about that. So, and I was like, so what did your mom say? He was like, she was just talking about I should have did this and I should have did that, and I was trying to explain it to her, and when he was saying that, I could see him getting mad again. And I was like, man, calm down. So he went on, he kept talking, and I said, you done? And he was like breathing hard. Like now he sounded like Darth Vader, like you know what I'm saying? And I was like, listen. I said, look, am I upset with you? He was like, no. And I was like, am I angry with you? He was like, no. And I was like, then why are you upset? And I was like, I get it. That's your mom. And I was like, but sometimes, man, you got to learn how to say, yeah, Mom. Yes, ma'am. I hear you. Okay, Mom. Right. I'm like, but you already know what the best decision to make. Right. And I said, I didn't say anything to you about it because I didn't want you questioning your decision making. And I was like, but if it didn't work out, I was going to point out your mistakes to you. And I was like, you don't wait to the last minute to ask someone for an extension. That's not what you do. When you found out what the issue was, you should have immediately went to your teacher and you should have asked her for an extension or asked her to print you out a copy of the guidelines of the essay. So you could have did it on a different computer and you could have sent it back. I was like, you could have done that. And I was like, but you already had decided how you was going to handle the situation. Why did you let your mom get in your head and steal your peace? And that's like, sometimes you have to just listen. Like, all right, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay, Mom, you're right. And when you got out the phone, be like, Mom, be on some other stuff sometimes, and walked away.
Right.
I say, learn how to chew the hay and spit the sticks. And I was like, and I've told her several times, stop talking to him like he's a baby. He's not a baby, but African American women, they're notorious for doing that.
Yeah.
Right. And it's emasculating to him.
Yes, it is. So
I'm like, I let him make choices, and he has a tendency to make the right choices. At first, he made a couple of mistakes, but I'm like, that's the point of him growing to trust his decision making, because as men, you have to learn how to make adequate and good decisions, right? You're going to lead somebody's daughter. You're going to be leading a family. You can't be in that situation, hemming and hawing and second guessing yourself, looking to your wife for advice. Like, baby, what do you think we should do? Like, yeah, I can see that you're getting stuck every now and then, and you turn to your wife and like, what do you think about this? You know what I'm saying? I asked my wife, what does she think about something, just as a formality. Really and truly, I've already, like, if it ain't something important, like if she sees me about to make a mistake, she'll volunteer. baby, have you thought about this? And I'm like, yeah. And she'd be like, okay. But the problem, like I said, that's that I'm the overseer. Like
Yeah.
they got into a fight. Like my ex-wife didn't, my wife is African. So my boys, when they, African women treat boys a certain type of way.
Mm-hmm.
And so my wife would take them places with her and, buy them things and stuff. And they would always go back. When this is when they would live with my ex-wife, they would go back and, they would have the fruits of, their little
Mm-hmm.
excursion with my wife,
I'm sure
And
that
they
went well with the ex.
Man, she would confiscate the
Yeah,
confiscate
I bet
the
she
country,
did.
man.
She hear fun in the background. Like, look.
I bet she did.
And she'd be eating up all their candy and stuff that my wife would buy for him and stuff. And so one day, my 10-year-old, he just got tired of it. He's like, that's it. I'm tired of it. So my 14-year-old is easy does it. He's chill. My 10-year-old is a firecracker, right? They kind of opposite of the spectrums. Like he's emotional. He's an emotional cat. You know what I'm saying? And so, my ex-wife was like, "What did you say?" He's like, "It ain't fair, Mama Mercy. Every time Dad and Mama Mercy get us something, you take it. Spitting truth, but a little out of pocket.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So she came in there, and she was like, and she stepped to him. He was like 9 at the time. And, my 14-year-old was like, hey, what are you feeling ready to do? He looked at her like, hey, I'm not finna let you do anything to him. And she was like, you want to try me? You want to try me? Ah! So they started tussling, right?
Wow.
And my son, he wasn't trying to hit his mom. He was just trying to stop her from hurting him.
Right.
So my 10-year-old ran to the phone. He called, and then he hung up immediately. Called me. And I called back, and she came to the phone out of breath. Like she had just did a 2-mile run. And I was like, yo, did one of the boys call me? I think she got it. I'm like, why are you out of breath? What's wrong? He had to look at me funny. So she sounded like a baby D off Friday. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? And so I was like, let me speak to him. She wouldn't let me speak to him. So I had to call the authorities. And
wow.
And then when her and I talked about it, I was like, why did you decide that you were going to put your hands on him? And she was like, well, I was going to put him in jail. This is what she said, her exact words. I was going to put him in jail. I was like, you were going to put him in jail for what? And she was like, well, I grabbed him and he act like, we was in here fighting. I'm like, you grabbed him. What do you think he's going to do? Do you think because you're his mother that he should just let you harm him? You grabbed him. He felt threatened, And she was like, I told him flat out, if he don't tighten up his act, he was going to jail. And I was like, you know what? I went down there like a few weeks later and hired a lawyer. Like I told my wife, I said, I'm gonna take $2,500 and I'm gonna pay for this lawyer and get him. Because when you talking about sending him to jail, now we talking about a whole different level.
Because you acting crazy. Because your parenting skills is bad.
Level, man.
Right. But the thing about it was, it's that overseer mentality.
Yeah.
Right? I should be able to punish you and whoop you and beat you how I feel like it, and you shouldn't do nothing about it. And if you do something about it, I'm going to get massive.
I'm going to weaponize the state against you. Yeah.
Right. And this is your at the time he was 13. This is your 13-year-old son that you do that with. And unfortunately, that's most African American women's mentality. And it's only got, and you said something earlier about Gen Xers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it started to show itself in Gen it's bad now.
Yes, it is.
And so it's like
because our generation was the generation was talking about, they started doing the whole, don't let your parents whoop you. If your parents do this, call the police and tell them this.
Or CPS like, that was just, stuff.
Yeah, that was just corporal punishment. You supposed to get whooped. You needed that tighten up.
Mm-hmm.
Man, let me tell you something. My brother tried that.
My brother tried it too. It didn't go his way.
My mama came home like she was Wolverine, Berserker Barrage. She came home like, you gotta call the CPS on me.
Both my older brothers tried that, and they were very shortly afterwards, they no longer lived with us.
Yeah, that's what happened with my brother. My mom was like, if you ain't gonna be following me, you gotta go. And
there's this thing about property, like it's one or two things, right? Like either you're the eternal baby, or Black American women have a tendency to make their children their surrogate husbands.
Mm.
Yep. Yep.
Man,
It's one or the other.
they gonna flag this video.
Yeah.
It's one or the other,
Like,
man.
man, you're absolutely right.
You're
Putting
my,
too
but
much
either
truth
way,
out
you're my
there.
property, right? Either
Right.
way, I have ownership, and like you said, I have that power, that authority, that absolute authority over you. Either
Mhm.
I'm going to coddle you, and you're going to be the eternal child, or I'm going to even cross
Force you to
certain
grow up early.
lines, and I'm, you know, to where it starts to get a little sleazy and like real questionable,
Right.
right? Where you're like my surrogate husband.
Mm-hmm.
It's one or the other. It's
I've
never
seen.
you are just the man of the house, like how you're saying it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God
Not all
that
the
your
way, man, because
sons.
then you gotta be listening to me.
Right, there you go. Because
Yeah.
if I
You
do
gotta have man
acknowledge your
responsibility, but not
right,
man real leadership.
Power is it's called
exactly,
power with no responsibility. Power without the authority. Responsibility without the authority. That's what I meant to say.
exactly.
But it's I've seen that so many times, man.
That's the
Like I've
dynamic. That's what it is.
man,
Mhm.
either they man, I've seen this one guy. I kid you not, man. This dude now he's a full fledged. He on fire.
Wow.
He's
Okay.
flaming now, right? His mom like emasculated the living crap out of him, right? And babied him so bad. This
Mm.
man is like 40 years old and called his parents, was crying. It was like, I need a new car. You guys won't co-sign for me. And they went right down there and co-signed for him.
Wow.
I was like, are you kidding me? Right? But I've seen the other end of the spectrum to where the woman has gotten mad because like one of my brothers, my mom, you know, she was back in her heyday, you know, back in Pearl Prime. You know what I'm saying? Like she did that to my brother, got married. He got married. He was living with he had moved back home with my mom. He was paying all the bills. And my mom and my stepdad was separated. And he was paying all the bills. And my brother found him. He found him a wife. And he got married. And man, she turned on him. Oh my gosh, she was so angry at him, man. I mean, she talked about him like a dog to me. I was like, Mama, you
Mm.
know, but it was like, I'm like, you're really mad because he was acting as your surrogate husband.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And now that he's taken his resources and he's LeBron James and you know took his talents to South Beach, you're angry with him. And it's like it's so embedded in Black culture. I think he left out by a second. But it's so embedded in Black culture, they don't even see it, don't you?
Right up.
They can't even see. They can't even
Doesn't compute.
recognize. Right? It's so horrible. It's so horrible. I don't know what happened. We lost him, but I'm gonna wait till he come back in. I'm gonna close the stream out because this was a really good discussion.
Yeah.
It was really good, and I love his perspective, man. I really do.
Yeah. That's
But yeah, man, I just me and you know, in good conscience, I can't encourage African American men to take African American wives. I can't. I wish I could, but I can't.
If you find that needle in the haystack, then I'm all for it. But unfortunately, it is a needle in the haystack.
It's a needle in the haystack, bro, and you blind too. Like
the thing is, man, you talk to them, and most of them, I talked to one, and she knew she was jacked up. She just expected you to put up with her jacked upness. I was like, we've talked about this. Why is it that you know you're doing the wrong thing, and I just still have to put up with you doing the wrong thing? Like, who wants to sign up for that knowingly? Like, I know I'm jacked up, but you can still do that, or you ain't have to tell me that, or I ain't have to do this. Right? There's always an excuse. Like, why is it always something I got to do instead of something you just can't buckle down and do the right thing? You know, all this stuff is happening. This is common, known information. It is a known. Yeah, here we are having to deal with it again because you don't want it. Why do I got to be bigger and more so you can do less?
Mm.
Like, that seemed fair to you? It's like you
Mm-hmm.
don't you want to go to work. Like you wouldn't go to work and like be promoted and expect to do the same job, would you? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
no. It's like just like you don't want to do more work and still make the same pay. It's like, no.
It's all good, Ishmael, man. I kind of figured something like that happened because you kind of abruptly cut out. But I was trying to wait for you to come back in, but if not, I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream um right now, man. And I'm gonna post whenever I'm gonna do the next one, so you can be scheduled and you can kind of catch it, or you can come in because I love the discussion. I love your perspective, man. I love what you brought to the table, and this is kind of why I started the Reconstruction Project, man, because I wanted us to all have. I wanted to have these type of discussions. It's one thing to be, me doing a video just ranting and raving about some stuff, but it's another thing that when we have an open like a discussion. There you go. There you go. All right. Yeah, I was waiting for you to come back in before I ended the stream because I wanted to get you guys' closing thoughts. But I really enjoyed this conversation, man. I'm glad. I love your perspective about everything, man, and I like
Yeah, I'm here,
discussions
man. I
like
don't know if
this.
you can hear me, but I'm
Yeah,
here.
I can hear you. I can
Yeah,
hear
yeah,
you.
yeah. No, I appreciate again. I appreciate the discussion as well, and the invite. Um, I would love to definitely continue to build with you brothers. I think that on several points, there's definitely some there's definitely some connection there. We seem to share similar perspectives on things, and as far as final thoughts go, I do think that what you're speaking to is definitely possible. I think that you know um, there's only but so much inclusion that's going to be allowed by a structure that one never acknowledged you as an equal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, your expectations have to change, right? Like you stated earlier, you can't expect someone to build something, um, keep that exclusive, and then you force them to to include you.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, you take stock of your resources, and you build your own, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's definitely opportunity to do that abroad. Um, I think that there's opportunity to do it here in the States as well.
Mm-hmm.
But there's definitely opportunity to do it abroad, and it may be actually easier for you because there's so much underdevelopment, no, the absence of development and the need for a return of sorts. I was speaking really quickly. I was speaking to an elder um, some time ago, and we were talking about some of the points that we brought up this evening. And he was saying, that a lot of the elders are really encouraging young African men and women to actually remain on the continent for their education
Mm-hmm.
instead of going to Europe, instead of going to America, because what tends to happen is that they become intoxicated with all of the bells and whistles that these places have, whereas Africa could benefit from their knowledge, their energy, their youth. If you study African history at all, you'll see, starting with the trans-Saharan and transatlantic slave trades, you started to see a continuous brain drain.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone talks about the raping of Africa's resources, but they tend to speak about things like gold, rubber, right? Like these material
Diamonds.
things, but they
Mm-hmm.
don't speak about the brain power, the
Mm-hmm.
creativity, the ingenuity, the calculated and sometimes reckless risk taking that comes with youth, right? That willingness to kind of charge the hill without knowing what's on the other side. Um, we don't speak about that as a resource. And
Right.
so I think that a lot of, elders in Africa on the continent that I've had conversations with are really trying to encourage their young people to remain on the continent or at least come back, right, and build infrastructure there.
Yes.
How does the African American fit into that? Well, we have the benefit of having one foot in and one foot out, so to speak, right? We can take these little pennies and resources that we have here, and we can take them there and stretch them and make them go further, right? But that's going to take work. It's going to take travel. It's going to take getting over preconceived notions about what Africa is, what Africa isn't, what you are and what you aren't in context of the broader diaspora. And a trip to the post office to get your passport, right?
Right.
So it's there. Lay the groundwork. Individuals such as yourself who are planning to move back, and people like my sister who, like I said earlier, secured citizenship. She's going back. She's purchasing land. I've gone into business with my ex-wife, and we own land in Sierra Leone. I have contacts in South Africa and different things, Ethiopia as well. So there's opportunities. You just gotta build that social capital, and that's going to take time. It's going to take will and faith, or as iman, as we call it in Islam. But it's definitely possible. So stop begging somebody. Stop. I'm just tired of the begging. I'm tired of the marching. I'm tired of the pleading.
Yeah.
Let us in. Accept me. They don't want to accept you.
Right.
Period. And I don't know if that is a like where this dissonance, maybe, accepting that is too painful for folks. Right. And so you create this dissonance, right? Like this ignorance, this willful ignorance. But the reality is that, all throughout this society, you can see where not just white people, though, right? Like non-black, everybody has their own thing. And it's time for Black Americans to build their own thing. And you want to go to fertile soil, wherever that is.
Right.
And that may be the continent.
Right.
So appreciate it again, man. The other brother, I don't, what is your name?
Ghost.
Ghost.
I'm Ghost.
It was a pleasure as well.
Yes, sir.
And I'm subscribed, man. So I'll look out for the next notification, and hopefully you'll let me back in.
Oh man, always. Anytime that you see me up, man, if I'm doing a live stream, and I'm getting better at this YouTube thing because I need to start my editing so I can grow more, but I just be want to talk, get my point out sometimes.
Yeah.
So but I'm trying to get better at it. But everything that you said in your final thoughts, man, I am 100% agree. And I think it was just a mic drop, because
Yeah.
especially when you said, stop begging. We have to stop begging and accept, that they may not want you. One of the things that, I was talking to Ghost about this. One of the things that I had to realize from my first marriage was I hadn't accepted myself. I hadn't accepted who I was prior to marrying her. Right. And so I think we tend to attract what we reflect spiritually. And so when maybe within the middle of the marriage, I really began to accept who I was. And so when I started beginning to accept who I was, it was like it didn't really matter what everybody else thought, so to speak.
Right.
And then really after we got the divorce, it was just like, okay, I know who I am, and I'm gonna be unapologetically, that person. And I think that that may involve that you having less and less friends and more people who want to rock with you.
Yeah.
And I think that African American people, we got to stop being, what we were programmed and designed to be in this country, and we got to become more. And I know every time that we tried to do that, they've came and they've done some stuff, but 400 years is a long time. It is up.
Yeah.
And I really do believe that was a prophecy, and I believe that it's up. And I think that we have to find ways to move forward. And just like you said, you go where you're most valued, and you know where you're going to get the best return.
That's it.
So I think that that's something that we have to do. And I don't know if Ghost left and he's getting ready to come back, but that's the only thing that I have to say. I really appreciate both of you guys coming in and having a discussion. Ghost, you got any final thoughts?
Y'all hit it on the head, man. I would just be co-signing and repeating what was already said, putting my spin on it. So I concur. I'll just leave it at that.
Well, with that being said, gentlemen, I appreciate you guys for stopping by, man. And we got to do this again. Maybe
Yes,
same time next week, same bat time, same bat channel.
I'm with it.
But you guys, man, y'all have a very blessed night. I'm
You too,
going
man.
pray my son hasn't been strung up. I heard in that minute go, sit down. I'm like, oh Lord. But all right, man, you guys take care, man. Y'all be blessed, man.
All right, you too, brother.
You
Thank
too,
you.
man.
All right.
Stay later.